it is any old gamer, and yep, that's G3RTA, guys. My first time ever making it into G3, and so that says to me we should do another RTA analysis video. Alright, so I'm not going to walk you guys through all the builds of my monsters. I've done that in another video in the past. They're new builds, but it's the same concept. I'll probably do another builds video at the end of this season. Not that the builds are secret, but today I want to be more about draft choices than I want to be about build choices. But with that said, it does make sense for you guys to get an idea of which monsters are in my box. Now, obviously, part of your planning for the RTA season is going to be which monsters you use. So you could always argue I might not have a monster built that would be an effective counter. You could argue that I have a monster built correctly or incorrectly for each counter, etc. But understand that as you're doing your counters, a huge part of it is knowing which monsters you've built to counter. So first, let me tell you guys, on Saturday, I'm recording this video. I don't know which day it'll get posted. I'm recording this video on Monday, Valentine's Day. On Saturday, yeah, the girlfriend knows. It's okay. But anyway, on Saturday, I had a terrible run. I started the day off losing 13 out of 15 matches. I dropped from around rank 500 down to rank 1300.
1 hour later.
And I refocused myself.
2 hours later.
And I climbed about 130 points to get from rank 1300 to G3 over about 35 wings. So the first thing I'm going to say in this video is try to not get overwhelmed by tilt. I dropped a lot from the tilt. Anyway, I'm playing a set core around Julienne this season when I can, with the exception of I have built a couple of new anti-control teams that have been more effective for me this year. I still struggle with control, or this season, but I'm doing much better against it. The only thing I haven't figured out how to counter yet is Oliver. That dude is beyond freaking busted. But, alright, so first draft down here, you can see the Chung Open, and now I've been testing a lot of different counters to a Chung Open. I've settled on Vertihile Hagang. It gives me the most flexibility because Verd can play in a lot of my comps. It's a triple revenge Verd, but max resistance, more of a tanky build. Hagang doesn't play great in a lot of comps for me, but he doesn't play terrible. And so to the Chung Open, my counter has been Verd, Hagang, and I'll tell you what, the interesting thing here is I actually now do better against Chung Control than I do against Chung Bruiser, because the Hagang and the Verd both don't play well together in a Bruiser team. But of the different combinations I've tried to counter the Chung Open, this one has had the highest overall win rate. Now I want to step back here a second, guys. So as we go through this video, I'm definitely going to be talking about anything I see that was a mistake on my part or the opponent's part. But a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is my actual thought processes through the season. So when I talk about like having tested a lot of different counters to the Chung Open, like specifically what we're thinking about here, it's the chess game. It's we know that Chung is played in some bruiser comps. He's played more frequently in fast control comps. A lot of people this season have built the ability to pivot based on your response. So when I test a counter to Chung, it's because I want to see what my opponent is going to do to my specific counter. If I countered, for example, Douglas Kinky, you can almost guarantee that my opponent's going to counter with an attack buff plus a Ciara or something like that, or on the other end they may bring a Mo Long, something that really counters those monsters. And knowing what your opponent is going to do in response to what you do can influence the entire chess match of the draft. So I actually want to jump up here for a moment. This is a match where I lost, very deservedly so. I got outdrafted, and this match really exemplifies the other side of what I'm talking about. So this match was against Nothing to Say, and Nothing to Say opened with the Gianna. Knowing that in G3, most of those players have Hagang, he prepared a comp specifically designed to counter Hagang. So he opens with the Gianna to go fishing for the Hagang because it turns my Hagang into a dead pick and makes it harder for me to actually build a cohesive comp with only 3 monsters. Now, when he opened with the Gianna, the Hagang response was automatic. You still have to have Hagang, even if you know they're ready to counter Hagang. If you don't take Hagang, they take the Hagang and you lose to their Gianna. So the Hagang part, that's an automatic. Now the question is, what do I put with it? In this case, I put the Nana. Not gonna lie, I think this was me being timid because it was my first time in G3 and I expected to get overwhelmed by speed. And even though I've fought a lot of G3s, obviously I've never been in G3, and this was just like a scared pick. Nana was a bad pick here. Julienne would have been a better pick, something a little bit more aggressive that still plays in a lot of comps. Obviously, Julienne's part of my core. My fear here with picking the Julienne this early is that with no immunity, I could be inviting a Tessari and I could be inviting an Isis, anything with Oblivion. But also I could be inviting triple or quad Oracles, because Oracles absolutely destroy you if you bring the Julienne out early. So Julienne into a Gianna open is kind of scary. On the other hand, the Nana also invites the Tessa, but it does kind of put me in a really bad spot if he then pivots into what he did right here, which is a high sustain comp. So he comes back with the Riley and the Molly supporting the Julienne, and at this point, I now have to work some sort of immunity in, but I can't get the Riley, which is the attack buff immunity. I don't have Fran Rune, so it forces me to choose between Lulu and Wusa, and I have no damage. Between the Nana and the Heigang, I have no damage, so I'm forced basically into the Wusa. Now, part of that is my own box, of course, but I'm forced into the Wusa pick here, which means I don't have Cleanse. I don't have anything to really counter the Gianna bombs, and I have, like, no damage. Julienne is my only damage at this point, so my 5th pick has to be a high damage unit, and then they get their choice of banning between Julienne or the high damage unit and Heigang sitting there as a dead pick. Now, this was all set up by his Gianna open and by knowing how I am likely to respond to that Gianna open. Ultimately, he comes out with the Nephthys, which is pretty much a force ban because all I've got is the Wusa for protection, and if I bring a cleanse unit, then I'm going to be seeing the Julienne get banned, and I'm going to have no damage, and I'm going to have kind of limited sustain because the Wusa's not a ton of sustain by himself, so all I really have is the cleanse unit to go with like a Heigang Nana, and then the Diana just runs all over me. Or if the Diana doesn't run all over me, the Gianna does, etc. So he destroyed me every which way through this draft. And that's what this video is about. It's not just talking about which drafts I won and why. Now, obviously, I'm recording on a really good streak up, so most of these are going to be me winning. Not all of them were necessarily great drafts, but most of them were me winning. But that was a draft that I just got beat on. So coming back to this first one and talking more again in kind of context of how we're looking at these counters. So he comes back, after the Chung, he comes back with the Riley Julienne, and now because I have Julienne, obviously I know how to counter Julienne, and that's going to be the Tessa, which once I bring the Tessa, I either force him to ban the Tessa or bring out a secondary immunity unit. A second immunity unit that pairs with the Chung and the Riley is not going to play really well. So it puts him at a really big disadvantage, and then I bring out the Nana just in case he decides to come out with some sort of burst damage like a Molong or something like that. Nana's going to play fairly well in this team because Riley, as good as Riley is, Riley's biggest weakness is that she has a limited cleanse and she has a limited amount of immunity, especially early in the match when you don't have to hit her. So Riley's super strong unit. I play her in most of my drafts, but recognizing that she doesn't really provide a lot of protection against an AoE defense break type unit gives Nana a lot more viability in this draft to help me kind of recover from that Heigang. Because now having the Heigang in, Heigang sort of counters the Chung partially, but he doesn't actually do anything in the way of damage, and the glancing hits can be helpful on the Julienne, but obviously Julienne self-cleanses, he's got the Riley, etc. So the Tessa, not a super high damage unit in my super high damage build that I'm using either, but it looks scary and it makes him react, and then the Nana gives me those defense breaks that help me set up so that the Verd and the Tessa damage is amplified. He responds with the Water Ryu and the Shihu. The Shihu is kind of an interesting CC pick here. I don't know if it would have been my first choice, but because I have double water units out, that does make it harder to go with the Karnal. And then I'm not, to be honest, not 100% sure about the Ryu pick. Ultimately, this match was really weird. My Tessa, who is max accuracy, it took 4 or 5 tries before I could land an Oblivion on the Julienne. I thought I was going to lose because I couldn't freaking land anything. But I had just enough sustain. I also took the last pick, Ethna. My Ethna is 341. She's going to outspeed almost any team on a 24 speed lead in G2, probably not in G3. So at this point, it gave me the ability to pick a little bit of control, and I banned the Riley. So at this point, I thought that I would be able to take an early turn 1 advantage and turn cycle with the Vertihile. Plus, I had the Nana revive, so I was kind of playing 5-on-4. And I thought if I ban the Riley, and then if I can use the... I expected the Ethna to get through. What I honestly expected was either a Nana or a Tessarian ban, but I was figuring it would be Tessarian. It was, and I believe it was actually Nana. But when I came through, I figured I used the Ethna for turn 1 CC over the Ryu. The Heigang is then going to cleanse the Chung, and then I get to go all in and take a couple of kills. I did win this one, but it was close. It was really close. Okay, so for the next match, I see the Nana open right here. Now, to this, my counter has been Riley and Julienne. Now, I've gone back and forth on this counter a little bit. The risk for me with the Riley-Julienne counter is that I'm not taking Mo Long, I'm not taking Carnell, I'm not taking Wusa, so I leave myself open to a Bulwark, but I also leave myself open to a lot of turn 1 snipe, and he's got the Nana, which is the preeminent reviver in the game. So I'm having a little bit of trouble fitting the Tyrannus in, which means that without the Nana, I do have the bub for revive, but it does kind of influence what my draft composition is going to be. Both ways, obviously dealing with the Nana and then also not having the Nana. Now, ultimately, he does come out with the Carnell Wusa, and this was probably one of my worst draft mistakes of the entire stretch where I was pushing up. At this point, I probably should have drafted a Lulu. Everything I was thinking is draft Lulu. It's going to protect you against Carnell. It gives you heal. Gives you sustain, and it also does not leave you overly exposed to a Bulwark. But instead, I decided to draft the Bulwark because I was so afraid of him drafting a Bulwark. Bulwark also obviously does give me some strip. He's a pretty decent counter against the Carnell right here, but he's not a decent counter against Nana Wusa Carnell. So this was a terrible choice, and what I actually thought was, okay, so I need a way to buff my Bulwark if he bans the Riley. I don't have the Wusa available because he's already taken it. My only other buffers are going to be Fang, who's probably not going to play great here against the Carnell, and I kind of knew a Juno was coming in this draft. You expect to see a Juno. So I'm like, I don't think I'm going to get to be able to use the Fang right here, and I can't make Lulu a 5th pick after I've already got the Riley Bulwark here because I'm going to be low on damage. So I'm going to take the Elsharian and I'm just going to steal his buffs, and I'm going to use those buffs to stack the Bulwark. That's my thought process here. So he comes out with the Savannah and the Juno, and I force my LD right here. The Beelzebub, very strong LD5 in some situations, but he is one of the most counterable LD5s in the game. He has a lot of weaknesses. He has a lot of incredible strength. He's like total two ends of the spectrum. When you get him in the right situation, he is super strong, but a lot of situations are not the right situation. So here I kind of defaulted, and I defaulted to pick my LD5. It was a bad pick, and ultimately he was very forced. It left me open to them just banning the Riley and then not buffing with the Wusa and having tons of CC because he had his choice between Carnell or Savannah, whoever I banned, and I just lost this one straight out on the draft. This is not a coin flip, actually. Because of the Tian Lang that he gets in the draft right here, I'm just dead all the way through. I have maybe a 20% chance at best to win this match because the Tian Lang just destroys me on the Verd. There's not really much I can do from what's ruined in my box to kind of counter. Once he gets to this point where he's got the Carnell, Chiwu, Chung, and more importantly, I've got the Wusa in here, so it's one less anti-counter unit I can use. I'm in a lot of trouble, and then when he has the Tian Lang to wreck the Verd, I've pretty much lost. Okay, here now we do actually move into where I start winning matches again. So in this case, we have the Wusa open. Counter to a Wusa open for me is Riley-Julienne. The weakness for me to this counter is if he does draft a Bulwark. Now, I have a fairly good number of revive units, and then I have a fairly good number of high offense units. But what I found works best is if I go with the Riley-Julienne and then they follow up their Wusa with a Bulwark, I need to move into the revive and just accept that something is going to get killed. So usually I would come out with a Nana, and I might bring the Beelzebub depending on how the draft is going, or I might hold the Beelzebub but expect to bring the Beelzebub. So I might do something like Nana Fang, and then just know I've already committed myself basically to a Beelzebub 5th pick. And that's kind of almost a choreographed match. So if I bring out the Riley Julienne and they bring out the Wusa, the rest of my if I bring out a Riley Julienne and counter in response to the Wusa, and then they follow up with a Bulwark, the rest of my draft is almost choreographed regardless of what they pick, because it's what I need to protect the initial draft pick of the Riley Julienne. That's a downside, but the upside is the Riley Julienne against the Wusa doesn't get countered by Bulwark as much as you would think, because the even though Riley is counterable by Bulwark, the Julienne is not, and they don't know what I'm going to bring yet. So a lot of times they will wait to take the Bulwark for a 4 pick, but if they respond with anything else that buffs, or with an Antares, not that they would, but if they did, I take the Bulwark right here and they can't draft him. If they don't, then I can usually come out with a couple of non-buffing units and encourage them not to go to the Bulwark. If they don't go Bulwark on the 3 pick, I usually don't see him on the 5. So in this case, he comes out with the Fang Tyrannus, very different, Fang Abellio, very different response. I don't think I had seen this particular 3-monster combination all season. I think I probably put some thought into this one. Ultimately, I went with the Nana because I was kind of expecting a little more burst damage here at the end, like a Molong or something. And then the Beelzebub is maybe not a great 4th pick here, but I'll be honest, I was just confused. And so because I was confused, I defaulted to him because he's a high damage monster with Revive, and I'm showing the Nana Beelzebub combination here. Now the weakness for me, when he brings this Mephisto, if he brings a Ganymede here as well, I could be in trouble. The positive for me, and the reason I'm able to draft Beelzebub here, is because he has no strip and he has no burst damage to this point. If he had one or the other, I'm in trouble. And when I say burst damage, I just mean like basically single target snipe, but it doesn't have to be all out snipe. So Molong is like burst damage. He does like 70% burst to you. So for example, if he had a Molong, or if he had anything that's stripped to that point, then his final 2 picks could be Mephisto or Gani plus something that finishes the kill of the Beelzebub, and then I lose. But because he doesn't have either of those 2 things, he can't draft them both together because I can ban one of them. So that makes it safer for me to bring the Bub here. The worst case scenario for me is if he brings out Sekhmet Okeanos. At that point, I probably lose. That particular 2-monster combo is almost guaranteed to beat me in this draft. But then I still have a little bit of chance because I have the Nana. Anyway, he ultimately comes out with the Mephisto and the Leica. I remember actually really thinking about, did I want to try and bring out some sort of damage, like a Molong or something, but the Abellio had me nervous here, and I ultimately decided just to play a sustain game. I thought no matter what, he had to let 2 damage dealers through, and I did have 2 multi-hitters to deal with the Leica, plus a ton of sustain. This was a long match. This match actually went to probably like 50% damage scaling. Ultimately, I got a stun on the Leica, a despair stun on the Leica with the Nana, and I was able to kill it. It was revenging a lot. So, second match, we match up again. Now, when you match up again, you usually want to see some sort of adjustments, and apparently he felt like he deserved to win that one. So, he continued through with the same draft. Now, I also actually felt like I deserved to win, but I felt like he was going to make a different ban this time. And my concern here was that he bans the Julienne. And without the Julienne, now that I'd seen his monster builds, without the Julienne, I wasn't confident that I would actually be able to kill the Leica. So he had a tankier Leica, my Nana's not in a damage build, and I would have needed this fight to go on, again, until we got to that like 50% damage scaling, without him getting like, you know, a couple of lucky procs in here or there. It wasn't a safe bet, so I decided to play a game of chicken. I brought the Tessarian, which obviously is going to Oblivion 4 of his monsters working on passives. I bluffed at me banning the Wusa. So the Tessarian tells him that I'm banning the Wusa. It's a game of chicken. It's a bluff. And then I didn't ban the Wusa. I actually banned the Mephisto. He did. He took, I remember this match well, he took 29.5 seconds. And he ultimately did ban the Tessarian, which gave me the Riley Nana Beelzebub Julienne combination. This match was not a long match. This match ended very quickly. Had he banned the Riley here, I'm pretty sure I lose, and that was the game of chicken. But I didn't think Riley was going to be the radar ban. I figured he would be looking at going between Tessarian and Julienne, And if he did as long as I got the Riley through, I figured either Tessarian or Julian was fine. I'd be able to live long enough to wait for the Wusa immunity to wear down. Now, next matchup, we have, I'm finally taking a first pick, so I open up with Wusa. He comes back with Riley Ragdoll. Not an uncommon counter, and so this is actually really easy for me. Bulwark is going to handicap the rest of his draft against that Riley, and Kinky, although Kinky has lost a lot of his value in a lot of fights because of the 2 nerfs, he's still sometimes usable in anti-control situations, but he does do really well against Ragdoll. So in this case, I take the Bulwark Kinky because it's going to directly counter the Ragdoll combination. He comes back with Miles Diana, which is kind of interesting. I came back with the Molong partly to keep him from taking the Molong, and partly because I had this gives me, like, when I take the Molong here, the way this draft is set up, he's got the Riley. The Miles can stun and he can do big damage, but Bulwark can, Molong can take big damage. Like, my units are all tanky. That Miles is not going to really do that much to anything. And then I've got the Bulwark and the Wusa to heal the Molong back up. And it gives me the snipe damage to deal with the Diana. So this way I can let the Diana through. The Julian, obviously, he's in my core. He's in almost every draft. But he also gives me single target stun on the Diana right here. He comes back with the Nana. I'm fairly sure that this was like a 1-second ban for me. I just banned the Nana because I didn't think he had any clear ban at this point that would win. Like, once I ban the Nana, any 4 of these 5 will beat these 4. So this particular one, remember I mentioned, it's a 340 Ethna, and so I'm going to outspeed these types of things. Ethna can one-shot the Lucian, probably one-shot this Poseidon, or if not, bring him to like 30% guaranteed stun. Same thing for the Tiana. So right here, I'm either getting the Abellio and the Beelzebub combination along with the Wusa, or I'm going to get the Ethna, which can just one-shot something, make his team fall apart, and then the Lucian's not guaranteed to actually crit the Vertihile either, so it puts him in a bad spot. His correct ban here is the Ethna, but if he does that, then I've got, again, Abellio, Beelzebub, and Vertihile. So in this case, I'm pretty sure he did ban the Ethna, which was smart on his part. And I had actually banned the Tiana and was able to get my immunity up in between so that the Poseidon never was able to get a clear shot on the S3. I had enough sustain between the Wusa and the Abellio that I was able to ultimately win. And he couldn't avoid killing the Bulwark. Why do I keep calling him Bulwark? And he couldn't avoid killing the Beelzebub, and then Beelzebub got a snipe and it was over. So right here we've got a first pick Lulu. This one confused the hell out of me. This was literally the first time all season I've seen first pick Lulu. I actually have only seen Lulu drafted a couple of times by anybody but me. Or by my opponents, I should say. I mean, I'm sure people are drafting him, but like in my matches, I'm usually the only one who ever drafts him. First pick Lulu confused me, so I just kind of went to something a little bit safer rather than taking the more aggressive Riley approach. I went with the Wusa. He came back with Xingzhe and Praha. All 3 of these monsters super weak to Fang, and then obviously the Nana Julian combination right here, Nana along with the Beelzebub coming out. This one was, I remember he was like proc crazy at the start. He was just proc, turn cycle, and there was a minute there where I actually thought I would lose, but I remember going into the match thinking there's no way I can lose this, and then he started procking and I was like, oh, I guess I can lose this, but in the end I did win that one. Then this was the one that actually pushed me up into G3. Very similar to some of the other drafts. It's another kind of ragdoll draft. This was an instant no-brainer. Just ban the Carnal, and felt very safe going into this because I was able to get the Beelzebub Nana combination through with no resetters and nothing really that Beelzebub was vulnerable to. So this was a really safe, kind of easier win for me. One thing you'll notice is there's no Kinky here. So from the draft sequence, he opens up with the Riley Bulwark and, the Riley Molong, and I'm back with the Wusa Julian Bulwark. The Bulwark has to be taken here because otherwise I run the risk of him taking him. And Bulwark is just such a great counter to this open right here. And then obviously the Wusa Julian. When he comes back with the Molly and the Ragdoll right here, I don't have my double revivers. So if I bring the Kinky, and then I bring just either Nana or Beelzebub, he bans the other of those 2, and he's able to snipe the Kinky out pretty quick, and I may not have quite enough damage. By bringing the Beelzebub here, he's not able to snipe Beelzebub out, or he risks me reviving, right? And then, obviously, the Beelzebub Nana combination is going to be more powerful. So in this draft, even though he's got the Ragdoll, I didn't wind up using the Ragdoll, using the Kinky because I had the Bulwark. Then we moved into G3. This match, I straight up luck sacked. Not gonna lie, this was just straight up luck sack. So I was super nervous. It was my first fight ever in G3. I open Wusa, and instantly I see Oliver, the monster that I have like beaten twice all season long because he's busted. So I just went to like I didn't know what to draft. So I drafted because Oliver Light Monkey. I haven't seen this combination all season long either. So I went to Julian Nana. He comes back with the Gianna Shihu, and I had no idea what to do. So the Ethna pick here is okay, but as soon as I pick Ethna, I'm committing to banning that Oliver because I have no speed leads. But then again, I was committed to banning the Oliver all along, and so my brilliant idea was, well, if I'm banning Oliver, let's bring Beelzebub, even though I know he can bring any other resetter as his 5th pick. Brought Beelzebub, he brought the resetter, I banned the Oliver, I got the strip on the Gianna, I got the stun on the Gianna, which is what I needed. So the whole concept here, the whole concept of this draft, and again, bad draft, but the concept was I'll ban the Oliver, and then if he brings a resetter, then he doesn't have a stripper. If he brings a stripper, then he doesn't have a resetter, with the exception of maybe Chung doing both. But at that point, he still needs a proc on the Chung. So I figure I'm going to get the Ethna through. I will stun the Gianna, or if he brings the Chung, I'll stun the Chung to make sure that Beelzebub doesn't get reset, and I'll just go all in and kill the resetter before it gets to reset the Bub, and then I get the Bub through. That's not a winning strategy most of the time. I got lucky. I actually got the stun on the Gianna. The Gianna procced out, but then the Gianna got resisted by the Bub and didn't strip the Bub. So again, he couldn't reset the Bub, and then he burned his S3 reset on the Wusa, which was probably a misplay because Bub was able to stay in the match. So ultimately luck sacked that one a little bit, but also it helped that he made a misplay. The very next match was one against an Oliver. People say that they have success with Carnell against Oliver. I never have. But I tried it. I tried Carnell Riley, and then he's got the Gianna Hay gang, so we brought out the Verd Nana. I haven't found anything that counters not Oliver, guys. This guy's just busted. I got beaten here. I actually almost had a chance. But the Dark Weapon Master also really strong. he's got like 2 of the strongest LD5s plus an Oliver. And yeah, he whipped me. He whipped me. And then we'll show you the last couple of drafts here. Definitely a long video, but this one was an interesting one. Actually, this one was really interesting. Annabelle first pick, another thing you don't really see on a regular basis. Wasn't entirely sure where to go, so I defaulted to the Riley this time, which because Wusa doesn't cleanse, and I wanted the cleansing that Riley gives. So I went with the Riley, and Julianne, when he came back with the Triana Leona, I felt good because this is the type of team I do well against, but I was also super freaking confused. So ultimately I took the Fang, which does really well against all 3 of those monsters, and then the Nana was my safety net because I didn't know where he was going with his last 2 picks. He came out with the Vanessa Juno. I finished with the Wusa, and then I did manage to win that one. And then for this last one, this was basically, again, the same kind of draft, same kind of monsters. It just paired up well for me. Monsters like Artemil and Molly are monsters that don't do well against my team in my draft, so it just worked out well for me on the draft. We won this one. We were able to hold up in G3, settled in at rank 200. I decided to stop for the day and record this video. So guys, that's it. That's a deep draft analysis of my run from actually G1 to G3. I was actually ranked 1300. It's obviously missing the first 15 fights. I think overall I was something like 32 out of 36, 33 out of 37. It was somewhere around there. It was a really long run. Julian has been great this season. It took me a long time to find comps that actually worked around him. Some of the things like giving up on using Mo Long, which is kind of tough because Mo Long is a monster I like. He fits my play style really well. He's very much in the meta, but he's got a lot of weaknesses in the current meta, a lot of things that counter him. And he just doesn't do that well with a monster like Julianne. Ultimately, it took me, like I said, a good 250 wings to kind of figure out what kind of comp would work with the Julianne and would make him shine. And then ultimately, once I did, he's been absolutely OP for me. Definitely been the MVP of my season. But at the end of the day, if Julianne is SS tier, and he really may be, he's not triple S tier. And he's my only one. I don't have 5 of them. I can't choose between them. I don't have Tian Lang. I don't have Gianna. I don't have most of the LDs you'll see up in the top. And I am out-ruined by a lot of the G3s. So we're not going to finish here, but it feels really good to have made it, even if it was just for a few days mid-season. So, alright guys, on that note, as always, I appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you subscribe. I hope you smash the like button, turn on the bell notifications, all that good stuff. And we'll catch you on the next video, guys.